Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here, and I welcome you to Enfuegotainment, my namesake program, for another brief FRESCA FUEGO review. And yes, we are getting fresh with it and talking The Courier, which was just recently released to theaters. I saw it with Lady Catherine, and this significantly impressed me. We have none other than Benedict Cumberbatch, and a lot of people probably have a little bit of a misconception that this is more of a James Bond shoot-'em-up sort of spy thing. Not that at all. This is hardcore political thriller and based on true events. Greville Wynn, I believe, is the name of the gentleman who this is based on. He was a British businessman in the early 1960s that assisted with going over to Moscow and helping somebody in the Russian government who was very disturbed by what was going on and the potential just nuclear destruction of the entire world. Family man, and so he felt compelled to reach out to both British and American intelligence with hopes of diffusing the situation and giving some military secrets, and hence the name The Courier. Benedict Cumberbatch's character Greville is essentially tapped by some M16 peeps, along with a woman who is not Evan Rachel Wood. I forget the name of the actress, but looks very similar. Myself and Catherine thought that it was her initially, and I was like, I don't think I remember seeing her name on the poster, so it's probably, you know, just a lady who looks similar. But that aforementioned actress, she plays a CIA operative that is working with M16 to basically avert this sort of nasty nuclear horrible scenario that could go down based on increased tensions in those early 60s. And being based on a true story, it does have some stock footage throughout. This leads up and goes through the Cuban Missile Crisis. It plays a significant part in the retelling, and it's very compelling stuff. This was easily in the best films that I have seen thus far, and we are almost a quarter of the way through the year. That is hopefully going to at least get better at some particular point in the post-2020 world. But 2021 has still had some stellar films thus far, whether, you know, official releases of Minari, you know, Nomadland, Malcolm and Marie. So those are some of the best that I've seen so far this year, Body Brokers being another one. But yes, The Courier has most definitely joined that class, and it's very subdued, as I already mentioned, so the shoot-'em-up fans will be disappointed if you thought it was going to be Bondy, but it's still incredibly compelling, and not to use cliches, but edge of your seat tension. Even though we know the scenario of what played out with the Cuban Missile Crisis specifically, and how, you know, praise the Lord and don't pass the ammunition, we didn't see during the Cold War that doomsday clock actually hit its mark. But nonetheless, you're still, especially since I didn't know the fate of any of our main characters, whether the Russian guy who is feeding military secrets to Greville, or you know, what the fate of either of those would be. And so that's where these sort of stories, I think, where it's told on a more personal scale as opposed to this huge scale, and, you know, you still have, you know, just, you know, both Russian and American and, you know, British people, real life characters in certain instances, and stock footage of, like, you know, Kennedy, both on TV, radio, so on and so forth. But the fact that if you're not well versed in this sort of stuff, you don't know who's going to survive and who isn't. And so that was where this was just incredibly thrilling for me in that regard. Performances were fantastic. You know, Benedict is pretty much great in everything, whether it's, you know, Sherlock or, you know, even as the second or the third choice, I think, for Doctor Strange when it was all said and done. But terrific in that regard, and he's great in this. And as far as transformative aspects for a role, without getting into anything spoilery, he starts one way and he gets to a different appearance with certain events that go down. And if you've seen The Machinist, without spoiling stuff, and maybe that does kind of spoil stuff a little bit, you know what I'm talking about, and it's impressive and shows such dedication to your craft. But as this guy who is very reluctantly recruited and fearful, and not a spy or a secret agent or anything like that, to infiltrate, they needed somebody unsuspecting, and so that's why M16 recruits him in the first place because he's a prominent businessman, but somebody who has that kind of, at least continental across Europe connection, and it would make plausible sense for him to go and try to do business in Moscow. Because interestingly enough, despite the fact that there were such just building tensions at the time in the world between the USSR and pretty much everyone in the West, whether Britain or across the pond to the United States, business people were still doing it. I mean, shit, even if you watch like Mank, that you see that there were people in the midst of World War II in Hollywood who were still like, well, Germans do good business. And so for that reason, yeah, business is often relegated off to the side and kind of indifferent in the midst of these sort of conflicts and tensions or full-on warfare, even if it's of that silent variety, which we had with the KGB and with so many different spies on both sides. And you do get a very intriguing essence of that in the fact that, okay, yes, there are people with conviction on the Russian side, but yet, yeah, there's people on other sides too. So there's all of these different forces in play. It's fascinating, and I just cannot describe to the proper extent probably the just amount of interest that I had in this, despite the fact that there's only maybe couple shots fired in this entire film as far as like gunplay or whatever. It's just very much so Greville's character being Benedict Cumberbatch, and as he gets deeper and deeper into this, the connection and the friendship that he forms with this Russian, I guess, ally, so to speak, who's going against his own government and very much knows the stakes of doing so. Early in the film, we have a scene where a traitor is discovered, and they make it very clear how it's a cut and dry sort of situation if that sort of discovery transpires. And yeah, as the conviction mounts even more so, because going from the arc of Greville is just so fascinating, because he just takes it upon himself, not just with the friendship, but the larger scale and scope of protecting his family. But it does come at the sacrifice of additional friction with his wife, greatly played by Jessie Buckley of Wild Rose fame and various other things. I'm always just delighted when I see that she's getting more and more roles and transitioning from, I know she was on like the equivalent of American Idol over in Ireland or Britain, somewhere in the UK, whatever. She isn't just a singer, she's a very talented actress, brings nuance to this performance as Benedict's wife and mother of his young son. And that's where it's a very interesting parallel, because our Russian ally, he has a young daughter of his own, and there are family interactions on both sides, and it's an interesting dichotomy between East and West and the various layers of the conflict, and yet also the mixed feelings and the gray areas amongst that, and how some people have hot heads, and just especially in the higher ups, probably both on the US and the Russian sides, and yet just seeing how this situation is diffused based on some of the intelligence, but also without spoiling things, the fact that I didn't know, having not done any research about this particular real life person, how things were going to pan out for them or for the Russian ally. And so for that reason, I was engaged, I was enthralled, and I will most definitely say 4 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs for The Courier. I know this initially screened, I want to say, well over a year ago, but obviously there were delays based on the pandemic and everything that we have endured in the midst of it. But this is most definitely one. It's not on the premium home VOD, at least not yet. I mean, yeah, I as much as I would recommend, based on the sweeping cinematography, beautiful views of both, Russia and London. There's some great stock footage of, the UK back at the time, and great other views. It is a beautifully shot film. It is a masterfully acted film. I would recommend, if you're into this sort of historical political thriller, definitely, if you feel safe going to a theater, if you've got vaxxed, or if you just feel cool in a theater, masked up and socially distanced and everything like that, I would definitely recommend that. If you're a little more on the fence about this sort of historical topic, Cold War stuff, whatever, yeah, you could probably wait until it's available on VOD, streaming service, whatever, but it's definitely one of the best things that I have seen thus far this year. So I extend a grande gracias a Jaime En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube, where that like, that share, that subscribe stuff means a hell of a lot. Early April is going to be a full relaunch of this channel with some different aspects of content that I've been hinting for a while. So look forward to that. But if you like spectacular stuff, got to jump over to youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. That's where myself, along with my cohorts in crime, Cecil Laird, Marsha Parker, Susan von Slaughter, Robert Duell, we do at least one new episode every single day covering the horror community in every single possible facet. And yeah, hope to see all of you there if you hadn't caught me here. So yeah, peeps, until the reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego! Cinemigos, constant readers and viewers alike, depending upon what I'm covering here, say thank you, and I hope we share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, remember to watch as many films as possible, support the industry, whether at home or out in a theater.